I am not one who usually criticizes the Pope, but I still am called in my heart and my soul to call balls and strikes, okay? Part of our mission as human beings, certainly our mission as Christians, is to call balls and strikes, to be honest. And I want to be honest regarding the new papal encyclical on climate change. I haven't read it, so I'm not going to comment on it. I'm hearing comments like crazy. I'm not going to comment on it because I haven't read it. It's almost 200 pages long, and I'm going to read it. That's number one. Number two, the Pope also recently made some comments about the manufacturers of weapons. And I could not find a text of the whole speech. The quotes that were pulled out were very troubling, okay, and seemed to indicate that he was saying, you're a hypocrite if you say you're a Christian and you're manufacturing weapons, or some of the press is spinning it that what he meant was, you can't call yourself a Christian if you are a weapons manufacturer. But in the same speech, he decried the Allies, America and England, for not bombing the railroad tracks going to the concentration camps where the Jews were being killed. In other words, we now know that American allies knew where the tracks were and decided that they were not going to try and stop the concentration camps from going forward with their ghastly deeds. It's just a horrific part of the Allied history. So the Pope is decrying them for not using weapons to destroy the tracks. Well, again, I could not read the whole text. Maybe he was speaking extemporaneously, but allow me to point out that if you're going to bomb railroad tracks, you have to have bombs. You have to have munitions. You have to have somebody who's making these munitions. And I, for one, thank Almighty God that the Americans and the English had the wherewithal to make the weapons to defeat the Nazis. Okay? That's number one. Number two, ISIS is armed, okay? The Pope believes, he knows that there were certain aspects of the Crusades that were valuable and were right, okay? This is a show or two or three for another day. But the Pope knows that there were elements of the Crusades that were spot on right, okay? And you had to have someone who would manufacture the weapons that were needed to get the Holy Land back into the hands of the church and out of the hands of the Muslims who had overrun it and stolen it. And finally, I'll make this point, and then hopefully you can tune in around. The last thing separating us as a people, and many other nations, but us as a people, is our ability, the last thing separating us from becoming slaves is that we have the arms to stop it. I don't think that there are pagans making those arms necessarily.